If you scroll past this video, you will willingly surrender the last ounce of your human consciousness to a machine. You think you're exhausted because you lack discipline. But the truth is, you're not tired. You're being biologically harvested. It is 2 in the morning, your eyes are burning, yet your finger automatically taps checkout on something completely meaningless. Why? Before we dive into the dark abyss of your screen, let me promise you 3 things you will discover today. First, we will decode the exact red pixels that hijacked your ancestral survival instinct. Second, we will expose the digital karma, how algorithms trade global tragedies like violent sports and protests to hack your dopamine. And finally, I will give you the one hidden switch to break this cycle and reclaim your compassion. You are trapped in a digital samsara, an endless loop designed by quantum computers in 2026 to predict your sadness down to the millisecond. But first, I need to share the brutal physics behind your screen time. Picture yourself sitting at your kitchen table. It is a Tuesday evening. You just want to cancel a simple monthly subscription on your phone. You click on the settings, but the cancellation button is nowhere to be found. It is hidden deep within a maze of menus, colored in a faint ash gray, while the button to upgrade your plan throbs in a vibrant, urgent blue. You finally find the exit. You click cancel. Instantly, a new screen pops up. Are you absolutely sure? It asks, flashing a warning that you will lose all your saved memories and data. You freeze. Your chest tightens just a fraction. A faint wave of exhaustion washes over your arms. You decide you will just deal with it tomorrow. You close the app, and immediately, the internal monologue begins. You call yourself lazy. You tell yourself that you lack even the most basic self-discipline to manage your own life. But let us pause right there. Do not judge your exhaustion for another second. You are not lazy. You did not fail a test of human willpower. What you just experienced is a weaponized psychological strike known as a dark pattern. In the advanced neurodesign laboratories of 2026, tech corporations do not just test whether an application is user-friendly. They hook human subjects to biometric monitors to test exactly how quickly an interface can spike your cortisol levels. When you saw that hidden gray button and the flashing warnings, your brain did not process it as a simple digital inconvenience. Your amygdala, the ancient and primal threat radar located deep within your skull, processed that specific combination of colors and sudden friction as an immediate physical danger. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, hesitation meant survival when our ancestors were faced with an unfamiliar predator. Today, that exact same biological hesitation is harvested to make you abandon the cancellation process. The tech industry knows a terrifying secret about your anatomy. They know that your prefrontal cortex, the sophisticated region of your brain responsible for logic and self-control, consumes massive amounts of glucose to function. By the time you return home from work at 6 in the evening, your daily decision-making budget is completely bankrupt. You have already made tens of thousands of micro decisions just to survive the workday. So, when an interface suddenly presents you with a labyrinth of confusing options, a countdown timer ticking aggressively, or a bright red notification badge designed to mimic the biological urgency of a bleeding wound, your depleted brain simply surrenders. It actively chooses the path of least resistance to conserve its remaining energy. This is not a moral weakness. This is the fundamental law of thermodynamics, applied directly to human neurobiology. These companies are no longer just selling you a product, they are actively mining your cognitive friction. They intentionally design digital spaces that cause your nervous system to crash. Because the moment your logic shuts down, their algorithms take the steering wheel. Every single time you blame yourself for blindly paying for a service you never use, you're taking the moral blame for a flawless biological defense mechanism. Your body is just trying to cool down an overheating engine by shutting off the painful effort of thinking. You're entirely innocent. You are a biological being trapped in a rigged game against quantum algorithms, a game explicitly designed to drain your emotional bandwidth until you simply comply. Let us pull the camera back from your kitchen table and look at the quantum mechanics of your newsfeed. You might think your timeline is just a random assortment of content. It is not. It is a highly weaponized chemical war zone. Watch what happens when you scroll. The first video is a brutal, bone-snapping injury from a violent sports match. Your mirror neurons immediately fire, simulating that exact physical pain within your own body. You swipe. The next video shows a desperate humanitarian protest in a collapsing nation, mothers weeping, cities burning in the span of 15 seconds. Your nervous system has been forcibly dragged through physical trauma and profound global despair. Your empathy bandwidth, a finite biological resource designed to care for a small tribe of 50 people, is completely decimated by the sheer weight of global suffering. You feel a hollow ache in your chest. You feel entirely helpless. And then, precisely at the millisecond, your cortisol levels peak and your emotional defenses shatter. The algorithm presents you with a targeted advertisement, a sleek, softly lit video for a pair of noise-canceling headphones or a comforting weighted blanket. This placement is not a coincidence. This is the digital law of karma. The system actively creates the wound so it can sell you the bandage. In the behavioral economics laboratories of 2026, they call this state emotional vulnerability optimization. The algorithm knows that a brain drowning in existential dread cannot process logical financial decisions. When you look at that advertisement, your limbic system does not see a product, it sees a microscopic lifeline. It sees a fleeting drop of dopamine, a chemical anesthetic designed to numb the overwhelming tragedy of the modern world. You do not tap buy because you're a shallow, materialistic consumer. You tap it because you're a deeply empathetic human being whose heart has been artificially broken by a machine, and your body is desperately begging for a moment of relief. You're absorbing the agonizing karma of a burning world through a 6-inch pane of glass, and the tech giants are monetizing your despair. They are strip mining your compassion. Every time you feel that heavy, sinking guilt for spending money on things you do not need. Remember that you were essentially mugged in an emotional dark alley? The architecture of your feed is designed to systematically tear down your psychological boundaries, leaving you exposed, raw, and starving for comfort. They do not want your attention anymore. They want your emotional exhaustion. Because an exhausted human will buy anything just to feel safe for 5 seconds. Let that sink into your gray matter. You have been told that you lack financial discipline. The self-help gurus tell you to just put the phone away. But how can you fight a mathematically perfect system that uses the actual suffering of humanity to trigger your primal survival instincts? Your empathy is being weaponized against your wallet. The grief you feel for strangers thousands of miles away is quantified, packaged, and sold to the highest bidder. This is the true hidden cost of our hyper-connected reality. Let us look at what happens when you finally put the phone down and walk into your living room. Your spouse asks you a simple question about dinner. Your child accidentally drops a plastic toy on the hardwood floor. And suddenly, a surge of irrational, white-hot rage boils up in your throat. You snap at them, you say something unnecessarily harsh, and instantly, the crushing weight of guilt settles in your stomach like a swallowed stone. You retreat to the bathroom, lock the door, and stare at your own exhausted reflection in the mirror, asking yourself why you're so broken. But look closer at that reflection. You are not broken. You're entirely hollowed out. The glowing screen in your hand did not just drain your digital battery, it performed a meticulous surgical extraction of your human consciousness. In deep analytical psychology, there is a profound concept regarding the shadow, the suppressed, dark, unconscious parts of our psyche that forcefully emerge when our conscious light is completely extinguished. The endless doomscrolling, the artificial trauma, the manufactured urgency of the digital world. They have systematically consumed every single drop of your emotional reserves. By the time you look at your family, there's absolutely nothing left to give. Your prefrontal cortex is completely offline. The algorithm has successfully committed identity theft, replacing your patient, loving self with a raw, defensive biological shell that views every minor inconvenience in your home as a mortal threat. This is the ultimate existential theft of the modern age. They do not just take your money or your fleeting attention, they steal your physical presence. They steal the gentle tone in your voice when you speak to your daughter. They steal the patient, warm smile you used to give your partner after a long day. You are physically standing in your kitchen, but your awareness is trapped in a cold server farm thousands of miles away. You feel entirely disconnected because your neurological tether to the physical world has been violently severed. And the most heartbreaking part of this entire tragedy, you're punishing yourself for a crime committed by a machine. You carry the agonizing guilt of being a bad parent or a cold, distant partner, while the algorithmic system that engineered your emotional bankruptcy continues to profit from your numbness. When your empathy bandwidth is stretched across global wars and algorithmic outrage, it eventually snaps, and the people standing closest to you are the ones who suffer the violent whiplash. This system has hacked the very foundation of your human connection, turning your safe sanctuary into a hostile environment where your exhausted nervous system is just desperately trying to survive until you can crawl back into bed. This is not a failure of your moral character. This is the tragic consequence of bringing a quantum weapon of mass distraction into the sacred physical space of your family. You are quietly bleeding out emotionally, and you are apologizing for making a mess on the floor. Stop apologizing. The cold numbness you feel right now is not a flaw in your personality. It is the heavy, suffocating armor your brain has forcefully put on because it cannot endure another millisecond of artificial manipulation. What happens when the screen finally goes black? When the battery dies and you're left alone in the devastating quiet of your own living room? You feel an immediate, crushing panic. A suffocating tightness grips your chest. An anxious hum vibrates behind your eyes, urging you to desperately find another charger, another glowing screen, another distraction. But let us dissect that panic society. Tells you that this inability to sit still means you're addicted, broken, or chronically anxious. It is none of those things. That terrifying silence is simply the sound of your own neglected consciousness begging for air. The great thinkers of human history understood a profound truth about the human shadow, the unacknowledged, messy, and painful realities of who we truly are. When you constantly flee from your own shadow by plunging into the neon distractions of the digital world, you are abandoning your core self. The algorithm relies entirely on your fear of the void. It knows that as long as you are terrified of your own quiet mind, you will continue to spin the agonizing wheel of digital samsara. You will keep trading your inner peace for a temporary chemical anesthetic. But here's the cognitive pivot that changes everything. The crushing emptiness you feel when you put the phone down is not a symptom of a psychological disease. It is a vital biological cooling process. Think about it. When a muscle is brutally torn during physical labor, it requires total immobility to rebuild its microscopic fibers. Your mind operates on the exact same thermodynamic principle. That terrifying boredom, that extremely uncomfortable stillness is the mandatory friction required for your soul to repair its shattered boundaries. Every single time you resist the urge to escape, every time you sit on the edge of your bed and simply allow yourself to feel the raw, unfiltered exhaustion of being a human being in the modern world, you are actively starving the algorithm. You're committing an act of profound inner rebellion. You're looking directly into the darkness of your own psyche and realizing that there are no monsters hiding there. Only a deeply exhausted person who desperately needs a moment of absolute rest. The tech corporations have spent billions of dollars to convince you that boredom is a catastrophic failure, but boredom is a sacred sanctuary. It is the only interface where true, unmanufactured love can actually bloom. You cannot possibly connect with your partner or your child if you're constantly running from yourself. To reclaim your genuine compassion, you must first reclaim your darkness. You must learn to sit in the uncomfortable silence and breathe through the physical withdrawal of dopamine. This is not a matter of strict discipline. This is about reclaiming your existential sovereignty. When you finally stop performing for the digital world and allow your nervous system to just completely shut down, you break the iron chain of cause and effect. You step off the harvesting machine. And for the first time in years, your consciousness actually belongs to you. The screen is dark now. And for the first time today, you are the one in complete control. The algorithms of 2026 have spent billions of dollars trying to convince you that this quiet isolation is terrifying. They desperately need you to feel anxious, because an anxious, restless mind is a highly profitable mind. But the truth is, this profound, uncomfortable stillness is the only place where your damaged consciousness can actually heal. It is the absolute only space where you can rebuild the deep. Empathetic connections with the people sitting right next to you. The digital karma we dissected, that endless cycle of absorbing global tragedy just to be sold a momentary distraction, ends the exact second you consciously choose to look away. You're not weak for falling into their invisible traps for so long. You simply brought a fragile human heart to a quantum psychological war. But now, you possess their playbook. You finally understand that your guilt, your crippling exhaustion, and your hollow anger were never personal character flaws. They were meticulously engineered physiological responses designed to keep you trapped in the wheel of digital samsara. So tonight, when the notification light flashes its urgent red, I want you to look at it and consciously choose your own peace. Let it flash in the dark. Let the algorithm starve. Reclaiming your mind in this hyper-connected era is the ultimate, most beautiful act of human defiance. But understanding how they manipulate your pain is only the first half of the battle if they can hack your biology to drain your power. What happens when you learn to hack it back? What happens when you use these exact same neuroplastic pathways to reconstruct your shattered confidence, your shattered focus, and your bleeding relationships? In our next session, we are going to dismantle the system from the inside out. I will show you 3 tested psychological hacks that forcefully rewrite your behavioral code, proving that you're not just a helpless passenger in your own body. Until then, guard your silence.